Good day, Earth viewers. I'm Oma from O.D.A. TVD. Join me as I give you today's top news.
The US says it's destroyed 16 Iranian mine-laying boats in the Strait of Hormuz. This after President Trump warned Iran that if it laid mines in this narrow stretch of water, it would be dealt with, in his words, quickly and violently. So why is the Strait of Hormuz so important? Well, it's a key shipping lane in the Gulf through which more than 20% of the world's oil and gas transits through. At its narrowest, the Strait of Hormuz is about 30 kilometers wide, with Iran on one side, Oman on the other. And in the past, Iran has threatened to close this narrow stretch of water down. It's a choke point, which, if it is closed down, would bring a halt to all that trade of oil and gas, leading to higher prices for all of us. So how would Iran do that? Well, in recent years, Iran's invested heavily in submarines, in anti-ship missiles, and also fast attack boats, as well as lots and lots of mines. So what happens next? There have been suggestions the US could escort tankers through the Strait of Hormuz with warships. France's President Macron has also said when the fighting subsides, European navies and also navies from other countries could help protect international shipping there. But even that will come with risks.
And as we take decisive action to stop the threat posed by the terrorist regime in Iran with Operation Epic Fury. Is that a great name? Well, it's only good if you win. You know, you can only do. And we've won. Let me say, we've won. But I'm pleased to report that earlier today, the International Energy Agency agreed to coordinate the release of a record 400 million barrels of oil from various national petroleum reserves around the world, which will substantially reduce the oil prices as we end this threat to America and this threat to the world. We don't want to leave early, do we? We got to finish the job, right? Nobody's ever seen anything like what you're witnessing now, and that can include the original killing of Soleimani and al-Baghdadi, two of the worst killers in the world that I did, as well as Operation Midnight Hammer, where we totally obliterated Iran's nuclear potential. We obliterated it. They don't have nuclear potential. And then after Midnight Hammer, and then we left, we figured that'll be the end of them for a while. But they started again. That's why we got to finish it, right? We don't want to go back every 2 years. And that's because, you know, there'll be some day when you don't have me as president. You'll have perhaps you'll have a weak, pathetic person like we've had in the past.
I don't know why we're doing it.
If President Trump says he has a plan, he has a plan.
The U.S. strike on Iran wasn't necessary.
I don't think we understand why we're there. No one has answered any questions.
I don't have all the information, so it's hard for me to make a determination whether it's in the interest of the United States or not.
I did look into it, and I just get really sad about all the losses of life.
Well, I totally appreciate our president because he's taking out the #1 state-sponsored group in the world.
I'm anticipating the prices of everything going up and my income staying the same.
It has affected oil production, and the gas prices have certainly gone up. I went from paying $3.36 a gallon to over $4 now in a matter of a week or two.
I'm from Texas, so it's oil country. And so we put up with this bump in the price because I think it's going to drop.
President Trump was here in Kentucky today to talk up his economic agenda, but it was clear just listening to him that some of that messaging has become scrambled by the war in Iran. Obviously, the uptick in gas prices has erased what was a reliable talking point for the president. And just in his speech, it was clear he was trying to say two different things. One is that the war was going to wrap up relatively soon.
And we've won. Let me say, we've won. You know, you never like to say too early you won. We won. We won the bet. In the first hour, it was over. Their Air Force is gone. Totally gone. That took the better part of about 3 hours.
He said that the military objectives had already been accomplished. But on the other hand, he says that he can't leave Iran. The war can't end before it's finished. He says he doesn't want to leave too early.
We don't want to leave early, do we? We got to finish the job, right?
It seems as if there's two countervailing impulses here. One is to sort of suggest to Americans that, yes, he does have an end game in mind, that the economic pain that some are suffering will be over quickly. But on the other hand, that he can't end the war until he has a plausible sort of picture of victory. Now, when I was talking to people at this event, and it's a self-selecting crowd to be sure, they said that they did believe the president. One said, I trust Trump to bring these prices down eventually, but it does seem clear that the longer this war goes on, the greater the political peril will be for President Trump and for Republicans.
The order for their execution has been issued.
That was just one of the many threats we have seen in the past few days coming from Iranian officials and state media figures. As the regime faces America and Israel from the sky, it is clearly worried about the threat from within and doing everything it can to ensure that people will not rise up again. The chief of police warned Iranians, essentially saying protesters will be treated as the enemy and shot.
Our team have their fingers on the trigger, ready to defend the Islamic Revolution and support our people and our homeland.
We've been hearing from people inside the country. Not only are they under intense U.S. and Israeli bombardment, there's also this increased atmosphere of fear. Checkpoints everywhere, many arrests. Anyone speaking out or sharing photos and videos is accused of collaborating with the enemy. This is a ruthless regime that has always used force to silence Iranians, but this time the threats have become near daily, and they're doing all this so openly. And they're threatening Iranians in the diaspora with legal orders to confiscate property, to go after them, and even worse.
We will make your mothers mourn you. This message is for you, both inside and outside the country.
With President Donald Trump's mixed messages on this war and where it's all headed, many Iranians worry that the regime will survive. And at the end of this, they'll be left all alone to deal with the consequences.
This is the Iranian women's soccer team arriving in Malaysia after the asylum case involving some of the players in Australia took another twist. One of the players who had initially accepted Australia's offer to stay has now changed her mind. Australia's Home Affairs Minister said Mohaddesi Zolfi contacted teammates who'd already left the country and asked to rejoin them. Australian officials say that Zolfi shared the player's secret location to the Iranian embassy after her teammates and coach advised her to contact it and get collected. That decision meant the remaining players who had sought refuge in Australia had to be moved immediately from the secret location where they were staying under police protection. It's not yet known what prompted Zolfi's reversal, but this could be part of it. The head of Iran's Football Federation on state TV Tuesday night saying that players who return home will no longer face punishment. The controversy began after members of Iran's team refused to sing their country's national anthem before the opening match of the Asia Cup in Australia. Iranian state media later branded the players traitors. Australian officials then offered members of the delegation the option for a private meeting away from Iranian government minders. 7 women, 6 players and a member of the support team were granted humanitarian visas. But Iran's Football Federation has continued to accuse Australian authorities of pressuring the players to seek asylum, something Australian officials deny. Meanwhile, the rest of the team has now arrived in Malaysia, where Iran's embassy says they will remain before returning home.
These Iranian soldiers are AI generated and they all seem to be following the same script.
Habibi, come to Iran. Habibi, come back to Iran.
Hundreds of videos like these have been flooding social media in recent days as the US-Israel war with Iran continues. Some have racked up tens of millions of views. So, what's going on? Disinformation researchers told us the accounts posting these videos show some signs of coordination. The type of content they've been posting, largely pro-Iranian government, when they were created, mostly in the last month. The usernames and profile pictures, very similar. the captions identical, often using protest hashtags. Researchers first noticed posts like these on TikTok before they spread onto other platforms. But the videos themselves don't align with reality. Women aren't allowed to serve in military combat roles in Iran, and it's mandatory for them to wear the hijab in public. That, along with the fact that most of these videos are in English, is why experts believe they are aimed at an international audience.
And I think these videos really aim to sort of demonstrate Iran as being strong and having all of this military power and treating women fairly.
TikTok has removed all 52 accounts the BBC flagged to them for breaking the rules on spam, fake engagement and AI-generated content. The company doesn't think these accounts were part of a covert influence operation. It says some users were more likely to be jumping on the trend to turn views and likes into cash. But since then, videos like these have still been popping up on our feeds.
3 tiny disputed islands in the Persian Gulf could be key in the escalating war with Iran. They're called Abu Musa and the Greater and Lesser Tonb Islands, and they've been at the center of a decades-long territorial dispute between Iran and the United Arab Emirates. The small, rocky islands sit right at the entrance to the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most strategically important waterways in the world. About 1/5 of global oil supplies normally pass through this narrow channel every day. Tankers leaving the Gulf must transit the strait on their way to international markets. The escalating conflict with Iran has already disrupted shipping across the Gulf. Iran has controlled the islands since 1971, when Iranian forces under the Shah seized them as Britain withdrew from the Gulf. The UAE still claims sovereignty, and tensions over the islands have simmered ever since. From these positions, military forces can monitor and potentially threaten ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz. That gives whoever controls the islands powerful leverage over global energy flows. And that leverage is now back in focus. For decades, Abu Musa and the Tonb Islands were a quiet territorial dispute. But in a widening war centered on oil, shipping, and control of the Gulf, they sit right at the crossroads of a global energy crisis.
In the heart of the Lebanese capital, Beirut, where an Israeli strike hit the Ramada Hotel just behind me at the weekend. It's the first time that an Israeli strike has hit in the center of the Lebanese capital since war broke out between the Iran-backed group Hezbollah and Israel around a week ago. Israel says the strike targeted a group of senior Iranian commanders who were meeting secretly inside the hotel. But the strike has left the community here shaken. Israeli strikes have hit across Lebanon over the past week, and official figures here say that almost 500 people have been killed. The United Nations says that almost 700,000 people have been forced from their homes. Many of them are staying here, sleeping in their cars or on the streets, or in hotels like the Ramada. The people I've been speaking to say they just want to know when they can return home. They fear that the strike here means that nowhere in Lebanon is safe anymore.
We're about filming. Straight inside! Straight inside!
We were being driven through the base when the siren went off. We were rushed into this building, into this room. As I ran in here, I saw servicemen get to the ground for their own safety. We've just been given, though, the all clear.
That's from when we were inside RAF Akrotiri, a British airbase here in Cyprus. Days before we were in the base, it was hit by a drone which punched a hole in an aircraft hangar used by US spy planes. Officials believe the drone was launched from within Iraq or Lebanon by an Iran-backed militia a day after US-Israeli strikes on Iran began. The whole thing's made waves here in Cyprus and beyond. Firstly, it's led several European nations to send warships to protect Cyprus, including a French aircraft carrier. Secondly, it's become a focal point of criticism of the UK government, accusations it was unprepared. Ministers insist they've bolstered air defences at the base. Thirdly, it's fuelled a long-running debate about the presence of UK bases here in Cyprus. These British sovereign territories are big. They take up nearly 3% of the island, kept by the UK after Cyprus gained its independence in 1960.
Russia is giving Iran specific help with drone tactics to hit US and Gulf targets. That's what a Western intelligence official told me, and it is a remarkable development. Look, we knew that Russia was giving general intelligence help, but the fact they're giving specific targeting and tactical advice to Iran is going to be deeply worrying for US officials and the Pentagon. There's only really one way they can be helping. Russia has learned on the front lines in Ukraine how swarms of drones, large numbers that change their directions, can get through quite sophisticated air defenses. And that's been very effective with their Shahid one-way attack drones. Now, that war over there is becoming the war very much over here. And at the same time, that same Western intelligence official said they are really concerned about sea drones attacking US carrier groups in that area, and also to generally the deterioration in security in the Strait of Hormuz. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Russia is helping Iran with drones, but news of this specific tactical advice suggests that Moscow really is in here to extract a longer-term price on the US that's been helping Ukraine with intelligence and tactics and weapons for years.
Documents show, regarding his severance payment, Peter Mandelson initially requested a sum that was substantially larger than the final payment. Not just 2 or even 3 times, but more than 6 times the final amount. Despite the fact that he was withdrawn from Washington because he had lost the confidence of the Prime Minister. The government obviously found that to be inappropriate and unacceptable. The settlement that was agreed was to avoid even higher further costs involving a drawn-out legal claim at the Employment Tribunal, given Peter Mandelson's employment as a civil servant rather than a...
What is life actually like in Doha right now? While missile interceptions are still happening pretty regularly in the sky above Qatar, life on the ground is now looking surprisingly normal. Malls are getting busy, delivery drivers are still working, and cafes are still open. And as I'm sure you can see behind me, there is also now a pretty constant stream of traffic on the roads. If you only looked at social media, you might think the whole country was evacuating. There have been viral posts from influencers talking about escaping the country and interviews with stranded tourists from makeshift underground shelters. But daily life here actually looks very different. It's also Ramadan, so the city was quieter anyway during the day and comes to life after sunset when people break their fast. That means many locals and foreigners are heading out to iftar buffets and to late-night shisha cafes. That doesn't mean people aren't scared. For many, including me, this is their first time experiencing something like this, and it is scary when you feel your building shaking from an overhead explosion. But this is just a reminder that life on the ground isn't always quite the same as the most viral moments you see online.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.